I was wiping the kitchen counter when my son asked for my signature. It was a Tuesday. The morning sun cut across the quartz in a clean, warm line. Leo stood in the doorway, a single sheet of paper in his hand. "Just a formality, Mom." He smiled. It was the same easy smile he'd had since he was a boy, the one that meant everything was under control. I dried my hands on the dish towel. I took the paper. It looked official. A dense block of text at the top, lines for signatures at the bottom. My reading glasses were upstairs. "What is it, Leo?" "Power of attorney, a limited one." He leaned against the doorframe, casual. "For the new roof contractors. They need a legal signatory on file for permits and lien waivers. It's simpler if I handle it." It made sense. The roof was his project. He had arranged the estimates. He had chosen the company. My husband, Martin, had been gone for 3 years. Leo had stepped in. He was good at stepping in. "You can read it, of course." He gestured to the paper. "It's just for property maintenance, specific to this job. It expires when the work's done." I trusted him. He was my only child, a financial advisor. Successful, he knew about papers. I took the pen he offered. I signed on the line next to my printed name, Elinor Vance **. "Perfect," he said. He folded the paper neatly once, twice. "I'll drop this off to them today. The cruise starts next Monday." That was the beginning. It was quiet. It was a Tuesday. The roof replacement took 6 weeks. Leo was at the house every day. He brought coffee for the crew. He checked the work. He paid the invoices from a joint account we had set up for household expenses. I had put $30,000 into that account, for the roof, for other things. "It's easier," Leo had said when we opened it. "You can transfer from your savings. I'll manage the disbursements. You won't have to write checks or worry about bills." It did seem easier. My personal checking account was for groceries, for my small pleasures. The joint account was for the house, for the things Martin used to handle. I saw the statements. The money went out for roofing supplies, for dumpster rentals, for permits. Then, one afternoon, Leo was in the living room on his laptop. "I'm just updating the auto-pay," he said. "For the utilities and the property tax. It's cleaner to run it all through the joint account. Then you have one single outflow to track." I was pruning the geraniums on the porch. I nodded. "Good idea." It was a small thing, a logical thing. A month later, he suggested we see an elder law attorney. "For estate planning," he said, "to get everything squared away, to avoid probate, for peace of mind." We went together. The office was quiet, all dark wood and leather. Leo did most of the talking. He explained my assets. The house paid off, my retirement accounts, my savings. The attorney, a man named Robert Haskins, was polite. He listened. He asked me a few questions. Did I understand? Was I comfortable? I said yes, I was comfortable. We left with a plan, a revocable living trust. The house would be the main asset poured into it. I would be the trustee. Leo would be the successor trustee. "For when you need help," Leo explained in the car. "Or if something happens, it just lets me step in seamlessly, to pay bills, to manage things without court interference." It sounded protective. It sounded like care. I signed the trust documents a week later, in Haskins's office. Leo was there, quiet and supportive. Haskins notarized my signature. "Everything is in order," Haskins said. The first real change was subtle. My car was old, a 2012 sedan. It was reliable, but Leo worried. "It's not safe, Mom. The airbag recalls. The mileage. Let me help you find something new." I liked my car. It fit me, but he insisted. He found a certified pre-owned SUV. He said it was higher up, easier for my knees. He handled the negotiation. He said we would use money from the joint account for the down payment. The monthly payment will be tiny, he said. We'll put it on auto pay from the joint account too. You won't feel a thing. When the paperwork came, it was at the dealership, a stack of forms. The salesman was talking fast. Leo pointed where to sign. I signed. I drove home in the new car. It smelled of artificial lemon. The registration came in the mail a month later. It was in both our names, Elinor Vance and Leo Vance *. I mentioned it to him. Oh, that's standard, he said. Since I co-signed the loan, it doesn't mean anything, just a formality. I put the registration in the filing cabinet. I felt a small, cold knot in my stomach. I ignored it. He started coming over on Sundays to review finances. He would open his laptop at the dining table, show me spreadsheets, pie charts of my assets. You're too heavy in cash, Mom. It's losing value to inflation. We should move some into a more structured investment, an annuity for guaranteed income. I didn't understand annuities. I told him so. Don't worry, he said. I'll handle it. You just need to sign a transfer form. It's for your security. He printed the form. It was from my investment brokerage, a request to transfer funds to a different institution. The institution was his firm. Will this cost money? I asked. Just a small advisory fee. Well worth it for professional management. I'm giving you the family discount. I signed. It was easier than arguing, easier than admitting I was confused. The first betrayal was quiet. It was about my sister, Celia. Celia lived in Arizona. We were not exceptionally close, but we talked every month. She was planning a trip, a tour of New England in the fall. She wanted to stay with me for a week. I was excited. I told Leo. He frowned. Is that a good idea? Her last visit was so disruptive. I didn't remember it being disruptive. She had visited 2 years ago. We had baked pies. We had gone to the botanical garden. Mom, she kept you up until all hours. She rearranged your kitchen. You were exhausted for weeks after. I didn't recall that. I remembered laughter. I remembered feeling light. Your memory, he sighed gently. You've been so scattered lately. The stress isn't good for you, and with her health issues, the extra burden, I don't think it's wise. He said it with such concern, such doctorly gravity. Maybe you're right, I said. I called Celia. I told her maybe another time, that I wasn't feeling up to hosting. She was quiet on the phone. Okay, Ellie, whatever you say. I felt a pang of guilt. I pushed it down. Leo was just looking out for me. Then came the doctor's appointment. My annual physical. Leo asked to come. To help me remember everything, I said. He sat in the room with me. When Dr. Evans asked how I was, I said I was fine. A little forgetful sometimes. Leo nodded sympathetically. She's been repeating herself, doctor, forgetting recent conversations. She left the stove on last week, just for a minute. I caught it. I turned to him. I had not left the stove on. I was sure of it. He gave me a patient look. The blue burner, Mom, with the tea kettle, you walked away. I doubted myself. Maybe I had. Dr. Evans made a note. He suggested a cognitive screening, just a baseline. I took the test a week later, in his office. A series of questions, remembering words, drawing a clock. I was nervous. I felt I did poorly. The results came back. Mild cognitive impairment, Dr. Evans said. Just a watch item, nothing drastic. Leo looked solemn. We should monitor this. I'll keep an eye on things at home. My friends began to drift away. Marion called to invite me to book club. Leo answered my phone. He told her I was resting, that I wasn't up for social stimulation. He told me later. She was just checking in. I said you'd call back. I forgot to call back. When I saw Sarah at the grocery store, she seemed strained. How are you, Elinor? Leo said you've been under the weather. I'm fine, I said. He's so devoted, she said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Taking such good care of you. It sounded like a question. I just nodded. I stopped getting invitations. My world shrank to the house, to Leo's visits. The second betrayal was colder. It was about Martin's watch, his Rolex. It wasn't incredibly valuable, but it was his. He had worn it every day for 30 years. I kept it in my jewelry box. I would take it out sometimes, hold its weight, feel the cool metal. I went to look for it one day. It was gone. I asked Leo. He looked surprised. Oh, I had it appraised. Remember, you agreed. It's in the safe deposit box for security with your other good jewelry. I did not remember. I knew I did not. I need the box key, I said. My voice was firmer than I intended. He sighed. Mom, it's safer there. With your memory lapses, what if you misplaced it? Or someone came into the house. It's for the best. I want the key, Leo. He looked hurt. Don't you trust me? It was a perfect trap. If I said no, I was the paranoid, ungrateful mother. If I said yes, I surrendered. I said nothing. He left. The watch was gone. That night I did not sleep. I lay in the dark. I thought about the signed paper, the joint account, the car title, the trust, the doctor's appointment. A slow, cold clarity began to form. It was not a storm. It was a frost, creeping over everything, turning each kind act into a brittle, hostile shape. This was not care. It was a quiet takeover. And I had signed it all away, with a trusting hand. I did not cry. I did not rage. I just stared at the ceiling. The realization was absolute, and it was quiet. The next morning, I began. I was calm. I had a purpose. I made a pot of tea. I sat at the desk in the den, Martin's old desk. I started a notebook, a simple, lined composition book. On the first page, I wrote, observations. I wrote down the date. I described the signing of the roof paper. I wrote what I could remember of the text, limited power of attorney asterisk. I listed every document I had signed since Martin died, every conversation about money, every time Leo had questioned my memory, every missing item, every drifted friend. I wrote facts, not feelings, dates, names, dollar amounts where I knew them. It was a map of my own erasure. I needed records. I could not ask Leo. He monitored the mail now. He said it was to help with the bills. I drove the new SUV to the public library. I used a computer there. I created a new email address, a secure password. I wrote it down in my notebook. I went to the county recorder's office. I requested a copy of the deed to my house. I paid the fee. The clerk gave me a document. It showed the house. Legal description. It was still in my name. Elinor Vance, a widow asterisk. That was something. I went to the DMV. I requested a duplicate title for the new car. The woman behind the counter was bored. She processed it. She told me it would come in the mail. To the address on file, she asked. Yes, I said, but I gave her the address of a private mailbox store I had rented on the way. I paid for 3 months. A seed of independence, a postal address he did not control. I called my investment brokerage. From a pay-as-you-go phone I bought at the drugstore. I identified myself. I asked for recent account statements to be sent to my new mailing address. The representative was helpful. She emailed them to my new email as well, PDFs. I printed them at the library. I saw the transfer. $120,000 moved to an account at Leo's firm, the quarter before. The statements from his firm were not forthcoming. I was not the account holder, they said. The advisor of record was Leo. I would need to request information through him. A perfect circle. I found the trust document in my filing cabinet. I read it slowly, with a dictionary, with a magnifying glass. It was dense, but I saw it, I was the trustee, but Article 7 described the incapacity of trustee. The successor trustee, Leo, could assume control if a physician certified I was incapacitated. Mild cognitive impairment, the doctor's note. It was a key waiting to be used. I photographed every page of the trust with the cheap phone. I saved the images. I needed legal advice, but not from Robert Haskins. He was Leo's attorney now, not mine. I searched online. I looked for elder law attorneys with a focus on fiduciary abuse. I read reviews. I made a list. I called the first one from my burner phone. I said I needed a consultation. I suspected financial exploitation by a family member. The receptionist was quiet, professional. She gave me an appointment, 2 weeks away. I took it. I continued to live my life. I made Leo his favorite meatloaf when he visited. I listened to his advice about my cluttered attic. I nodded when he suggested maybe a smaller, more manageable place might be better in a year or two. I played my part, the slightly confused, grateful mother. Inside, I was crystal clear. I was taking inventory of my own life. I found the paperwork for the joint bank account. I went to the branch. I asked for statements from inception. The teller was hesitant. I was on the account. I had a right. I insisted. She printed them, 3 inches thick. I took them to the library. I spread them out in a study carrel. I saw the pattern, the roof payments, the utility auto pay, the car payment, then smaller things, charges for restaurants I had never been to, hotel bookings, a payment to a jewelry store, not the one where Martin's watch had been appraised, a different one. I photographed every page. I cross-referenced the dates in my notebook. I saw my primary care physician again, alone. I told him I wanted a full neuropsychological evaluation to assess my cognitive state thoroughly. He was surprised. The screening was just a baseline, a leaner. I understand. I want a definitive one, the best, with a specialist for my own peace of mind. He agreed. He gave me a referral. The evaluation took 4 hours over 2 days. Tests of memory, reasoning, attention, language. At the end, the neuropsychologist, Dr. Lim, was clear. Mrs. Vance, your cognitive function is well within normal limits for your age. There is no diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment. Your earlier score was likely due to anxiety or a lack of familiarity with the test format. She wrote a detailed report. She gave me a copy. I put it in my private mailbox. It was a shield. The day of my legal consultation arrived. I told Leo I was going to a gardening lecture at the library. He seemed pleased. That's a good, calm activity for you. The attorney's name was Aaliyah Chen. Her office was downtown in a modern building. Her manner was sharp, calm, and devoid of pity. I showed her my notebook. I showed her the documents I had gathered, the deed, the trust, the bank statements, Dr. Lim's report. She looked through it all. She took notes on a yellow legal pad. Tell me about the power of attorney you signed, she said. I told her about the roof, the single sheet of paper. Do you have a copy? I did not. She nodded. We can get one. If it was filed with the county recorder, it's public. But a limited POA for a specific transaction shouldn't be, unless it was misrepresented. She explained the process. This was not a dramatic fight. It was a procedural unraveling. First, we need to secure your position as trustee. Your son has not yet formally invoked the incapacity clause. We will inform him, in writing, that you are fully capable and are retaining all trustee powers. We will provide the medical report. And the joint account, I asked. We will send a letter to the bank. From you, revoking his authority on the account. It will freeze the account. He will not be able to write checks. You will have to go in person to remove him entirely or close it. And the money he spent. That is a separate issue. We will send a demand letter for an accounting, for the return of any misappropriated funds. If he does not comply, we can file a civil suit for fiduciary abuse and conversion." Her words were clean, technical. They were tools. "What will he do?" I asked. She looked at me. Her gaze was steady. "He will likely be angry. He may escalate. He may try to petition for guardianship. Using the old doctor's note, we will be ready with our own evidence." I hired her. I paid the retainer with a check from my personal account. The account Leo did not monitor closely. He thought it was for PIN money. We began. Aaliyah Chen drafted a letter on her firm's letterhead. It was addressed to Leo and copied to Robert Haskins, the trust attorney. It stated that I, Elinor Vance, was fully capable. It cited Dr. Lim's report. It stated I was exercising my full powers as trustee of the Vance Family Trust effective immediately. It revoked any prior informal arrangements. It demanded a full accounting of all transactions conducted on my behalf. It listed the joint account, the investment transfers. It demanded copies of any powers of attorney. It was mailed, certified, return receipt requested. I was in my kitchen when Leo called. His voice was not the son's voice. It was a stranger's, tight, cold. "Mom, what is this? What have you done?" "I've taken back control of my life, Leo." "You're being manipulated by some lawyer. You don't understand what you're doing. You're not well." "I have a clean bill of health, Leo, from a specialist. I understand perfectly." "This is a mistake, a huge mistake. You'll regret this." The line went dead. 2 days later, a process server came to my door. It was a petition, filed in probate court, in the matter of the guardianship of Elinor Vance. Leo was petitioning to be appointed my permanent guardian of my person and my estate. He claimed I was suffering from dementia, that I was vulnerable to financial exploitation, that I was making reckless decisions. He cited the old doctor's note, the cognitive screening. He cited my isolation from friends, my paranoia. He listed the large check to Aaliyah Chen as evidence of my poor judgment. The hearing was set for 6 weeks away. This was the secondary attack, the legal counterstrike. Aaliyah Chen was not surprised. It's a common tactic. When control is threatened, they seek it through the courts. They use the system. We had to respond. We had to build our case. The next weeks were a blur of quiet, meticulous work. It was not exciting. It was paperwork. I met with Aaliyah for hours. We prepared my declaration, a sworn statement telling my story, with facts, with dates. We subpoenaed records, from the bank, from Leo's firm, from the roofing company, from the car dealership. We drafted a list of witnesses. Dr. Lim, my sister Celia, my old friend Marion, who was shocked when I called her and explained. Celia flew in. She stayed in a hotel. She met with Aaliyah. She was furious. I knew something was wrong. I knew it. She would testify to my long-standing competence, to the change in Leo, to his efforts to isolate me. We gathered every scrap of paper, every photograph of a document, every entry in my notebook. We prepared a motion to dismiss the guardianship petition and a counterclaim for financial elder abuse, for breach of fiduciary duty, for the return of my assets. The day before the hearing, Leo called again. His tone was different, pleading. "Mom, let's stop this. This is destroying our family. Let's just sit down, talk. We can work it out. I'll explain everything. You can move back into the house. I'll manage things, but we'll do it together." It was the final manipulation, the appeal to emotion, to the fear of conflict. I was calm. "There is no together, Leo. You stole from me. You lied about me. You tried to have me declared incompetent. We will see the judge tomorrow." I hung up. The probate court was not like television. It was a small, quiet room, wood-paneled, fluorescent lights. The judge was a woman in her 60s, Judge Wilkins. She had a tired, patient face. Leo was there with Robert Haskins. He looked confident, clean-cut, the concerned son. I sat with Leah Chen. The hearing began. Leo's attorney presented his case. He painted a picture of a declining mother, a son stepping up, a mother now being influenced by a predatory attorney. He entered the old medical note into evidence. Then Aaliyah stood. She entered our evidence. Dr. Lim's full report. The neuropsychologist was there, ready to testify. She entered my declaration. The bank statements with the personal charges highlighted, the trust document, the deed showing I own the house. She called Celia. Celia was fierce. She spoke of our lifelong relationship, of Leo's subtle campaign to cut me off. She called it emotional theft. She called Marion. Marion testified about the phone call where Leo said I was unwell, about how my social circle evaporated. The judge listened. She took notes. Aaliyah called me to the stand. I was sworn in. I was nervous, but my voice was steady. She asked me simple questions about my life, about Martin's death, about the roof, about the signatures, about the watch. I told the truth, simply, without embellishment. Leo's attorney cross-examined me. He tried to trip me up on dates, on amounts. He implied I was confused. Mrs. Vance, isn't it true you signed the trust document willingly? Yes. And you signed the investment transfer? Yes, because my son told me it was for my security. He was trying to help you, wasn't he? He was trying to control me, I said. The room was very quiet. The attorney sat down. Judge Wilkins asked a few questions of her own, about the joint account, about who had deposited the money, about who had spent it. Then she called for a short recess. We waited in the hallway. Leo did not look at me. He stood with Haskins, speaking in low, urgent tones. We went back in. Judge Wilkins put on her glasses. She looked at her notes. This is a sad case, she began, but not a difficult one. She found that Leo had failed to meet the burden of proof for guardianship. She cited Dr. Lim's report. She found me fully capable. She dismissed the guardianship petition, with prejudice. Then she addressed the financial matters. She said the evidence of misuse of the joint account was clear. She said the transfer of funds to his firm, without full disclosure, was a breach of duty. She did not rule on our counterclaim that day. That would take longer, but she issued a temporary restraining order. Leo was to have no access to any of my accounts. He was to provide a full accounting within 30 days. He was to return all personal property, including Martin's watch, within 7 days. She ordered him to pay my attorney's fees for defending the guardianship petition. She found the petition to have been brought in bad faith. She gavelled lightly. Court is adjourned. It was over, in 45 minutes, with no shouting, no tears in the courtroom, just the dry application of rules. The aftermath was procedural. Leo delivered Martin's watch in a padded envelope. He left it on the porch. He did not ring the bell. The accounting he provided was incomplete. Aaliyah called it a joke. We filed the civil suit for financial elder abuse. It took 8 months of depositions, of negotiations. Leo fought, but the evidence was too strong. On the eve of trial, he settled. He returned the remaining balance of the transferred investment funds. He reimbursed the joint account for all personal expenses, with interest. He signed a quitclaim deed, removing his name from the car title. He resigned as successor trustee of the trust. I removed him entirely. The settlement was confidential, but it was comprehensive, and it was irreversible. I revoked the limited power of attorney. I closed the joint account. I dissolved the trust and put the house back in my name alone. I changed my will. I left my estate to a charitable foundation for elder rights. Leo did not contest any of it. He moved to another state. We have not spoken since the day in court. That was 2 years ago. I still live in the house. I had the roof inspected by a contractor I hired myself. It was fine. It never needed replacing. I see my friends. Celia visits for a month every fall. We bake pies. I volunteer at the local senior center. I lead a group. We don't talk about our families. We talk about books, about gardening. Sometimes a woman will whisper a story to me, a story about a son, a daughter, a signature. I listen. I give her the name of Aaliyah Chen. The emotional processing is slow. It is not a wound that bleeds. It is a fossil. The shape of a betrayal turned to stone inside me, heavy but inert. I do not hate Leo. Hate would be a connection. I feel a vast, silent distance. He is a stranger who shares my DNA, a lesson learned in the hardest way. I rebuilt my financial life, slowly, with a fee-only advisor who is not allowed to sell me anything. I review every statement. I ask questions. I understand it now. The quiet justice was not in his punishment. It was in my reclaiming. In the court's quiet affirmation, you are here, you exist, you are not erased. It was in the return of my own name on the deed, on the accounts, in the quiet of the house, which is mine again, entirely. I sit on the porch in the evenings. I watch the light fade. I feel the weight of Martin's watch on my wrist. It is just a watch, but it is his, and it is mine. The story is over. The legal matters are closed. My life is my own. Yet sometimes in that quiet, a single question rises. It is not angry. It is deeply, mournfully curious. I look at the empty chair beside me. I listen to the rustle of the oak leaves, and I wonder, what did he think he would find in that safe deposit box that was worth losing his mother for? The question lingered in the quiet air, not as a wound, but as a puzzle, a final, unsolvable piece. I did not dwell on it. I had a life to live, a life of deliberate, chosen simplicity. The first order of business was the house itself. It needed to be wholly, incontestably mine again, not just in fact, but in feeling. Aaliyah Chen handled the legal dissolution of the trust. The paperwork was straightforward, a revocation, a deed of reconveyance. The new deed arrived in the mail, to my private mailbox. I opened it there at the counter. Eleanor Vance, a widow asterisk. It was just a piece of paper, but it felt like a cornerstone. I hired a local handyman, not a contractor recommended by anyone I knew. His name was Sam. He was in his 60s, quiet, with careful hands. I asked him to check the roof Leo had supposedly replaced. Sam spent an hour up there. He came down with a thoughtful expression. Mrs. Vance, that roof is 15 years old if it's a day. In decent shape. Asphalt shingles, no major leaks somewhere. It's got another 5 to 7 years easy. No one's touched it recently. I thanked him. I paid him in cash. The money from the joint account restitution was in my savings now. I used it for things like this, for truth. I had Sam change the locks on all the doors. Front, back, garage. He installed a simple keypad lock for the side door. I gave the code to Celia, to no one else. Next, I tackled the accounts. With Aaliyah's guidance, I closed every account Leo had ever touched. The joint account was first. I went to the bank. I met with the branch manager. I showed her the court order. I closed the account. I took a cashier's check for the final balance. I opened a new checking account at a different bank, a credit union, sole owner. I set up online banking myself. I chose the passwords. I wrote them in a physical book I kept in a small fireproof safe. The safe was in my closet, under a stack of sweaters. I met with the fee-only financial advisor Aaliyah recommended. Her name was Clara. Her office was spare, functional. She charged by the hour. She did not sell products. We met for 3 hours. We went over every asset, every statement. We drafted an investment policy statement. Conservative, income-focused, transparent. We moved the money from Leo's firm. It was part of the settlement. The transfer was initiated by their compliance department. It was silent, efficient. There was no phone call from Leo, no final plea. Clara helped me set up a system, a budget, bills on auto pay from the new account, but I approved every payee first. I reviewed the transactions every Sunday morning. It was a ritual, a reclaiming of attention. I sold the SUV, the one with both our names on the title. Once the quitclaim deed was recorded, the title was clear, mine alone. I sold it to a dealership. I took a loss. I didn't care. I used the proceeds to buy a 2-year-old compact sedan, reliable, anonymous. The title came in my name only. I registered it at my private mailbox address. I did not get a new dog. Martin and I had always had dogs. A golden retriever named Sunny had died a year before Martin. We hadn't gotten another. Leo had said it was too much responsibility for me. Now the house was very quiet. I considered it, but the commitment felt large. The silence felt like mine to own first. The social rebuilding was slower, more delicate. I called Marion. I invited her for tea, at my house. She came. She was hesitant at the door. I let her in. I had baked scones. We sat in the sunroom. I owe you an explanation, I said, and an apology. I let myself become isolated. I gave her a pared-down version, not the legal details, just the shape of it. A son who became overbearing, who misinterpreted care for control. Marion listened, her eyes filled. I knew it, she whispered. I knew something was off, but he was so convincing, and you seemed withdrawn. I didn't want to intrude. You wouldn't have been intruding, I said, but I understand why you stayed away. We talked for 2 hours. It was not a dramatic reconciliation. It was a gentle reconnection, like picking up a dropped stitch in a familiar knit. She told me about the book club. They were reading a mystery. She brought me the copy. I went the next week. The women were kind. They did not pry. They simply welcomed me back. Sarah gave my shoulder a squeeze. That was all. I reconnected with others, slowly. A lunch here, a walk there. I was honest, but not overly so. My son and I had a falling out over my finances. It's been resolved legally. I'm fine now. That was enough. It stopped the questions. It invited no gossip. Celia's visits became the anchor of my year. She came for 3 weeks in the spring and a month in the fall. We did not spend the time talking about Leo. We talked about our childhood, about our parents. We gardened. We tried new recipes. She helped me sort through the attic, not because it was cluttered, but because I wanted to. We found a box of Martin's letters from before we were married, when he was in the Navy. We read them aloud on the porch. We laughed at his terrible jokes. We cried a little. It was a good pain, a clean one. The volunteer work at the senior center was my idea. Clara, my financial advisor, had mentioned it. She sat on the board. They needed someone to help with a weekly financial literacy coffee chat. Basic stuff. How to avoid scams, how to read a statement, the importance of a will. I had lived it. I could talk about it without emotion, just facts. The first session, 5 people came, mostly women. A few men. They were wary. They thought I was going to sell them something. I began. My name is Evelyn. I am not a professional. I am a widow. 3 years ago, my only son began to manage my finances. It ended with a lawsuit. I learned some things the hard way. I'm here to share what I learned, so maybe you don't have to. The room got very quiet. Then they leaned in. I kept it simple. I used a whiteboard. I talked about joint accounts, what they really mean, about powers of attorney, the difference between a general and a limited one, about the importance of getting your own legal advice, not using your child's lawyer. I did not tell my story. I used hypotheticals. Let's say a relative offers to help with your bills. What questions should you ask? After the first chat, a woman lingered. She was small with bright bird-like eyes. Her name was Gloria. My daughter, she said softly. She just added her name to my checking account for my convenience. Is that bad? I didn't say yes or no. I gave her a pamphlet from Aaliyah Chen's office. Elder financial abuse, red flags. I gave her the number for the county's adult protective services. I told her to get her own copy of every statement. You have a right to your own money, I said. She nodded. She looked scared, but also determined. She took the pamphlet. That became the pattern. After each chat, 1 or 2 people would stay. They would whisper a fragment of a story. A son who insisted on holding the debit card. A grandson who borrowed money for a business that never materialized. A daughter who moved in and wouldn't leave. I listened. I never gave legal advice. I only gave resources, numbers, names. The name I gave most was Aaliyah Chen's. Aaliyah told me later I had sent her 3 clients in as many months. Quiet, sad cases, she said, but winnable because there's a paper trail. There always is. It gave me a purpose, not to fix my own past, but to be a signpost for others, pointing toward the exit from a similar maze. A year after the settlement, I received a letter. It was from Robert Haskins, Leo's attorney, or rather, my former trust attorney. It was formal. It stated that upon review, and given the settlement agreement in Vance v. Vance *, his firm would be closing its file. He wished me well. It was a nothing letter, a piece of administrative dust. But it reminded me of something. The original limited power of attorney, the one for the roof. I had never seen a copy. On a whim, I went back to the county recorder's office. I asked the clerk. I gave her my name and address. I asked if any power of attorney documents had been recorded against the property in the last 5 years. She searched the computer. She clicked. She frowned. There's one, she said. Recorded, let's see, about 3 years ago, a durable general power of attorney. Grantor Elinor Vance. Agent Leo Vance. My breath caught. It was not limited. It was general. And it was durable, meaning it would remain in effect if I were incapacitated. Can I see it? My voice was calm. She printed it, for a fee. I took the paper to a bench in the hall. I read it. It was the document I had signed, the 1-page paper Leo had brought to my kitchen, but it was not a limited power for roof contractors. It was a sweeping, durable general power of attorney. It gave him the power to manage all my financial affairs, to buy and sell property, to make gifts, to access safe deposit boxes. He had lied from the very first signature. And he had recorded it, making it a matter of public record, a cloud on my title, a declaration of his authority. It should have made me angry. It only made me cold. It was the final proof of the original intent, the first move in a long, quiet game. I drove to Aaliyah Chen's office. I didn't have an appointment. Her receptionist recognized me. She waved me back. Aaliyah was at her desk, surrounded by files. She looked up. I placed the recorded POA on her desk. I never revoked this formally, I said. I revoked his authority on the accounts. The court order restrained him. But this document is still out there, recorded. She picked it up. She read it. A grim smile touched her lips. Technically, your later actions, the court orders, and the settlement agreement likely invalidate its practical use. But you're right, it's a loose end. It shouldn't be on the record. How do I remove it? We file a revocation. A simple notarized document statting you, as principal, revoke the power of attorney granted to Leo Vance on that specific date. We record it right on top of the original. It puts the world on notice that it's dead. Do it, I said. A week later, the revocation was recorded. Another piece of paper, another line in the official history of my life, a correction, a deletion. 2.5 years passed. The seasons turned in the garden. I planted perennials, things that would come back on their own: peonies, daylilies, Russian sage. I traveled, small trips, a guided tour of coastal Maine, a week in a cabin by a lake with Celia. I paid for everything from my accounts. I made the bookings myself. The autonomy was a quiet joy. I heard about Leo indirectly, through the old, rusted pipeline of mutual acquaintances. He had moved to the Southwest. He was still a financial advisor. He had married. Someone told me that. I felt nothing, no curiosity about her, no wish for grandchildren. That door was closed, boarded up, and painted over. The part of me that was a mother had been annexed. It was not a violent loss. It was an amputation that had healed cleanly, leaving a phantom sensation, a memory of a feeling, not the feeling itself. My life was full in its own way. It was a life of careful composition, chosen solitude, selective company. It was peaceful. And yet the question never fully left. It lived in the quiet corners, in the space between waking and sleep. What did he think was in the box? It wasn't about the watch. The watch was a symbol. It was about control, about ownership. But the question was more specific. It was about value. What did he believe he would gain that justified the cost? One afternoon, I was cleaning out the den closet. I found an old cardboard box. It was marked Taxes 2008. I opened it. It was just old receipts. But beneath the files, my hand touched something leather. I pulled it out. It was Martin's old portfolio, a worn, zippered leather case. He had used it to carry important papers. I hadn't seen it in years. I sat on the floor. I unzipped it. Inside were old passports, property tax records from decades ago, and a slim, legal-sized envelope. It was sealed. In Martin's handwriting it said, "For Ellie, if you ever need it." My heart beat a little faster. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a notarized letter, dated 6 months before he died. To whom it may concern, asterisk. I, Martin Vance, being of sound mind, wish to record my observations about my son, Leo. I love my son, but I do not trust him with money, not with other people's money. He has a cleverness that bends toward taking. He sees care as a transaction. He sees love as a ledger. If anything happens to me, I urge my wife, Evelyn, to maintain sole control of all assets, to seek independent financial and legal advice, to be wary of any plan Leo proposes that involves signatures or transfers. He is my son, but he is not a safe harbor. This is the hardest thing I have ever written. Martin Vance. Below was his signature, notarized. He had known, not the details, but the essence. He had seen the flaw in the stone, and he had left this, a message in a bottle for me. I had never found it, because I hadn't needed to look. Leo had moved quickly after Martin's death. He had offered help. He had presented himself as the safe harbor his father warned he was not. I held the paper. I did not cry. I felt a profound, aching gratitude. Martin had tried to protect me, even from his own child. And then the question shifted. It crystallized. It was never about what was in my safe deposit box. It was about what was in asterisk his asterisk. Leo's character, his nature, the flaw his father saw. Leo must have sensed that Martin knew. He must have feared some document, some proof was hidden away. The watch was a pretext. He wanted access to my box to look for evidence against himself, for his father's final judgment. He was not stealing from me to get rich. He was stealing to preempt a condemnation, to secure the assets before any truth could come out, to make his control total so no one could ever believe a piece of paper over him. It was a fear-driven theft, a panic masked as calculation. I put Martin's letter in my fireproof safe, with my passwords, with my new will. It was not a weapon. It was a testament. It was the answer I hadn't known I was looking for. Now it is 3 years since the hearing. The story is long over. I sit on my porch. The evening is cool. The first fireflies are out in the garden. Martin's watch is warm on my wrist. My life is quiet. It is mine. The deeds are clear. The accounts are balanced. The doors are locked with codes I chose. I have friends for dinner sometimes. I go to the movies with Marion. I lead my chat at the senior center. Gloria now runs a small support group. She tells me I inspired her. I tell her she did it herself. There is no revenge here, no triumph. There is only the steady, quiet fact of a life reclaimed. The justice was procedural. The consequence was distance. The aftermath is peace. I think of Leo rarely. When I do, it is as a figure in a case study, a lesson in how betrayal can wear the kindest mask, how love can be used as a tool for erasure. I am not bitter. Bitterness is a residue I chose not to keep. I cleaned my house of it, along with the ghosts of what I thought my family was. The silence now is not lonely. It is spacious. It holds my thoughts, my books, the scent of peonies from the garden. I watch the last light fade behind the oak tree, the one Martin and I planted when Leo was born. It is tall now, strong. Its roots are deep in the earth that belongs to me. Everything is in order. And yet, as the stars begin to appear, faint in the twilight, one thought remains. Not a question of what he sought, that is answered, but a quieter, more reflective wonder. I look at the empty chair beside me. I feel the weight of the past, now settled, and I think, with a calm that is final and complete, if he had simply asked me for what he needed, would I have given it to him?